Alrighty, team. So it's Kate. I'm back again to explain Vlookup and HLOOKUP. So to begin, I just want to pose a problem that Vlookup is really good at solving. So here we have on this spreadsheet, we have two tables. There's a third. Let's ignore it. So this first table looks like it could be a report card, maybe. We have these class codes, and we have this blank list of class names. But what's useful is in the second table, we have these same, looks like a list of class codes and all the class names. So what we might want to do is match this class code and get out this class name and put it right here. And that is what Vlookup does, which is pretty cool. And you don't have to do a whole bunch of manual scrolling and typing and copy pasting. So this could be an easier way of doing that. So let's look at Vlookup. So it's a vertical lookup tool that searches down the first column of a range for a key and returns the value of a specified cell in the row found. So that's really confusing, but we'll go back to that example and we'll look into it a little bit more. But for now, let's look at the arguments. So the first would be the search key. And this is going to be the value that is shared by both tables. And we're going to use it to look into the second table. It's the value we're matching, basically. The range is that second table. It's the lookup table. We want to exclude the headers because we just want to look at the data in order to do our matching. And we're usually going to input the range as an absolute reference because we don't really want the range to change ever. That table is going to stay in the same spot in our Excel sheet. It should really be an absolute reference. Our index is the column number of the value to be returned. So when we look down the first column of our range, that's the first column in the second table to find our search key. As soon as we find our search key, we're going to look across in the same row, we're going to look across all those various columns until we find the value in the column that we want. And that column number that contains the value that we want is the index. So this is a little bit confusing for two reasons. We've previously talked about columns in sheets as being letters like A, B, and C. Now we're talking about them in terms of numbers. Even more confusing, when we taught you Python, we drilled into your heads that Python indexing starts at 0, but now the first column in the range is 1, which might be more intuitive for some of you. Is sorted is an optional argument that defaults to true. We'll get more into this later, but for now we're just going to assume that it's false. I'll talk more about is sorted in depth when we talk about HLOOKUP. But for now, let's go back to our example. Okay, so I really want to take this key, look down this first column of our second table. I want to match it, and then I want to take the class name out. So that's exactly what Vlookup is designed to do, so we'll do it. And I'm really sorry, I know me typing is really loud. So instead of writing MA101, that's not super useful if I wanted to drag this formula down all these other cells, so I'm going to use a relative reference. I'm going to use C3. Okay, so the next argument is the range of our second table, so that I'm going to use an absolute reference. Nope, and it's not S, it's a $sign. And I'm going to say B15 to D26, and I wasn't great about that is a typo, might be. Okay, great. So now we have our highlighted range, and that's excellent. And now we want to set our index, and the values I want to take are all in this third column. So my index is going to be 3. I can see now that the value it's trying to give me is artificial intelligence, which I can clearly see is not actually true. What's going on here? This is assuming that is sorted is equal to true. So I'm going to set it equal to false, get algebra, and it's fabulous. Okay. So as soon as I set is sorted equal to false, I get the right answer. We'll talk a little bit more about is sorted, but if some weirdness is happening, just switch is sorted for now. Okay, and now, since I coded this beautifully, I set this relative reference so that when I drag this down, everything stays the same in my calculation, except that C3 shifts to C4 when I drag down to B4. And you can see I have calculus, so MC101 becomes C4. And now I'm looking for MC101 in the second table. I go over, I find calculus, fabulous, so it's working. Okay, and then I can just expand this to my other rows, and you can check back and forth, and they are all matching, and it is fabulous and wonderful. Okay, so that's VLOOKUP. Let's look at HLOOKUP, and we'll look one more time. It is sorted because it's annoying. Okay, so HLOOKUP, where V was a vertical lookup, HLOOKUP is a horizontal lookup. So it's almost exactly the same, except that now we're searching our first row for the search key rather than our first column, and our index now refers to a row number, not a column number. Those are the only real differences. Okay, and finally, for this is sorted. If it is true, we assume that the values in the range are sorted. If this is the case, they don't have to be exact, and whatever lookup you're using will look for the closest match less than or equal to the search key. This can be really useful. If you aren't looking for an exact match, then it may make a lot of sense to sort your data and then use this is sorted. That could be great. In most cases, however, the first column or first row of your data won't be sorted, and so it makes sense to put the search key false. The only problem with putting false is that now an exact match is required. I have no idea why they did this in the confusing manner that they did, and these rules are super finicky, and you should not have to memorize them ever, so they're in documentation, they're easy to find. And I recommend just kind of letting is sorted just roll around in your head. Don't try and grapple with it too much. But the rest of this is really, really useful. And just remember that when in doubt, is sorted as false. Okay, thank you so much, you guys. I hope this was clear.